Welcome to Two Homes. This podcast explores the relationship between our inner world and the systems we live within, from our bodies and beliefs to the businesses, destinations, and environments we shape. Because sustainability that isn't embodied doesn't last, and well-being that stays at the surface level doesn't change much at all. Together, we'll explore what it really takes to build systems that support people, places, and the planet over the long term. From leadership and organizational culture to the hidden patterns that shape how we live, work, and travel. This is an invitation to look a little deeper and to discover how meaningful change often starts closer to home than we think. Welcome to Two Homes, and in today's episode we'll be talking about what integration actually looks like. We've talked a lot so far about what the systems are, what the problems are, the human elements of that. And so today we're diving into what does it actually look like when it's working. And just recently I have begun a quest to find some great examples here locally in Sydney. I've got plenty of amazing, incredible examples from Southeast Asia, one of which I'm going to be sharing with you today. And I'm also excited to find some more of those here locally where I am now. Because ever since I moved to Sydney, I have been asked over again, what are the hotels, what are the places that are doing sustainability really well in Australia? And I don't have a really strong, solid response, to be honest. There's a lot of talk in the sector, but in terms of those really integrated, really results-oriented, really practical examples, these are the ones I'm looking forward to discovering. So before we go into the example of that beautiful integration that I've seen, let's talk about what do I even mean by integration, right? So we've possibly touched on this before, but for me, integration is about, in really simple terms, what is written on the policy or what is written on the sustainability certificate, and how is that showing up? Is it showing up with integrity in the day-to-day operations? It's pretty much as simple as that. It is weaving sustainability into the culture, not trying to shoehorn it in as an extra. It's about dispersing not just the requirements, but the enthusiasm for it. It's about infusing it into all levels. Honestly, I think in the future, sustainability itself, I hope, is not a standalone job. Yes, maybe we need it for now, while it needs that extra emphasis, while it needs the extra focus to begin that integration process. But going forward, in an ideal world, in my opinion, is having it really embedded in culture so that it is just how businesses operate. We have operated on the bang for buck, milk it, get as much money out of this as we possibly can with the least cost way of operating for such a long time. And I'm not the only one who's noticed that and found it exhausting. It is showing up in burnout, in depletion. We look at food security, our food systems are starting to turn around, but there's a lot of degradation that's been done. We're looking now at people and that cost of the human depletion in our workforce is, for Australia alone, in the tens of billions of dollars. So we've done it. We've done it in the prioritizing dollars over people, over planet for so long. It is the turning point now. I strongly believe that, because we can't keep going this way. This idea that economic growth is perpetual and always an upward trajectory is false. And then we get disappointed when things don't go that way. But we can't live in a summer vibe, in a growth vibe all year round. We need to be able to accept that there are ebbs and flows. And sustainability does that in business by building more resilience, more integration, really emphasizing the importance and the value that people bring to the table, and also really emphasizing and celebrating that the human element is so important, because we've got 8 billion humans on this planet and we're at the core of everything. Let's not water that down. This is where the gold is. This is where it's really, really important. And that's what integration looks like to me. And another part I'd like to mention is that this isn't about it costing more. This isn't about it being more work. It's about doing work differently. And when I talk about that being embedded in culture, that it's part of everyone's job, this is work done differently. This is not feeling like sustainability is a hurdle or a high jump to jump over, but it's making it part of everybody's role when they come to work. And what I've also seen over the years is that when this is done in an inclusive and collaborative fashion, it actually brings more meaning. It is more rewarding. There is less burnout, less stress. There's more engagement, more of, I'm not just working. When we treat workers like an economic asset, then they behave like that too, right? So if we're treating them as like, we're just going to pay you the minimum wage to get the job done, then they're going to treat it like it's just a paycheck. I'm just here to earn the money so I can feed my family, so I can pay my rent or my mortgage or whatever. So when we shift that, when we have this integrated sustainability, staff are happier, they're more engaged, they believe in the work more, they believe that they're working for a good company. And we saw a huge shift around that in the COVID, peak COVID years, when all of that was playing out. There was a huge shift in the workforce because people realized, oh my God, I'm doing a job I hate. Why would I do that? Life is short. We've moved on quickly and a lot has been forgotten from that time. And we need to remember those lessons as we go forward. And when we provide a workplace and a platform that engages people, then people will be engaged. Repeating what I just said, if we treat people like assets, they will behave in a way that is just about getting the paycheck. When we treat them like humans, then they will be more committed and bring more value to the table. It's really that simple. What I do know to be the opposite of integration is, I had a conversation recently and I was chatting with an ESG manager, and we met the hotel manager and said hi, and the hotel manager just said, yep, well, that's their job. I let them take care of all of that. That's not integration. That is a silo. That is a disconnect between leadership and the important work that needs to happen. I also see, and I've shared some of these examples before, but like when I see a sustainability certificate by the elevator in a hotel, and then don't see anything in the hotel that really reflects anything that looks like sustainability to me, that is not integration. It is if I speak to any member of staff, be that front office, housekeeping, restaurant, and ask a sustainability question, and they freeze and say, I don't know, I have to get my boss, or I don't know, I have to get the sustainability manager. That's not integration, right? So I think we're pretty clear on that. I think we're pretty clear on what integration isn't, and I hope that we're going to become more clear for what integration is. And sometimes it is harder to discern that. I have been told many times over the years, with products, with hotels, with different things, because when people learn about what I do in sustainability, they want to share good examples with me, which I love. And it is beautiful that, that there's that connection that we have. And Yeah, it's definitely happened a heap of time with products where people are like, oh my God, you love this product. And I try not to get upset with myself when I fall for it because I want to believe it. I want to believe that it's amazing. And so I'm like, okay. So I try the product and I'm like, I don't know what's sustainable here. Twice it's happened with personal care products and they're in plastic packaging. I'm like, okay. And for one of them, it was about the recycled content in the plastic packaging. I'm like, okay. And both occasions, I'm like, but the ingredients inside the product. On both occasions, I'm like, oh, but the ingredients inside the product are not sustainable. They're full of phthalates and fragrance and non-sustainable, non-healthy things. It's really interesting. And I think this also talks to the holistic nature of sustainability. I would rather someone say, this product is in recycled plastic, rather than pretending that the entire product is sustainable, because one element does not make a holistic sustainability initiative. And similarly, I've been invited to go to different, destinations or hotels or properties, and it's like, oh, you'll love this one. It's really sustainable. And what I appreciate is that there are some valuable sustainability initiatives. There is some consideration. But again, if it's not holistic, if it's a little bit of a like something here, something there, the standard hang up your towel sign that is just so prevalent. This to me, this is the baseline. This isn't the aspiration. Okay? So there can be some signals that might look like it's integrated, but until we peel back that layer, we may not be able to tell if that is true or not. Okay, so let's dive in and have a look at what is integrated sustainability. And I love this story. I talk about this property a lot because it is really one of the most beautiful examples I've seen in all of my time working in this space so far. And I reached out just recently to their GM and said, hey, I want to talk about this. Is it all good with you? And always extremely supportive. And this is what I love about Joni as a general manager, what I love about Treeline Hotel in Siem Reap, Cambodia, that is really so fulfilling is that they are supportive. It's not all about them. They are supportive of the local community. And let's, pause there a little bit. So just to describe the hotel, firstly, the hotel is about the architecture of the hotel. The way that it was built is really to infuse nature. It is about nature in the experience of staying in a hotel. And it is also about the local art. Okay, so I'm actually going to read some things from their website because it's worded so beautifully. So Treeline Urban Resort, it's privately owned. It is a design hotel and it's on the riverside in Siem Reap. It is a one-of-a-kind home for guests traveling to the gateway city Siem Reap for the temples of Angkor. Masterfully crafted with leading Cambodian artists and a curated experience. It is masterfully crafted with leading Cambodian artists. I believe they still do a quarterly feature artist. I have been there many a time for the opening night of a new art installation, which they put into their atrium at the center of the hotel. The concept is about the interplay between nature and civilization. Looking at the Khmer ancestors who looked to nature and the spiritual worlds for inspiration. They carved what they saw onto the temple walls. And now today, if you've ever been, it's amazing. Now today, the jungle wraps around those same stones. And it is this fusing of nature and civilization, in this case, ancient civilization, and in the case of Treeline Urban Resort, the modern civilization. It is really inspiring. Okay, so that's what the hotel about. It's about art, it's about nature, and it's about civilization. And I think that they really work with those values every day. So what was the starting point of us working together? When they opened, I believe in 2017, because that's when we first started working together. Joni reached out to me and she said, look, here's the thing, when we open, we want to be plastic free. And so I went and I visited them and we had a great conversation. She showed me around the hotel. She showed me the guest rooms. It was stunning. And in all of the front of house, she's like, all of it, we've done all of this, completely. There's no plastic that the guests can see. However, we want the back of house to align with that as well. And that's where we need your help. So from that point, from that site visit, I got a really good look. We went and looked in the back of house where their waste management was, and this is something that is the less glamorous but also really insightful part of the work that I do. I have been in I hesitate to call it a garbage room, but we tend to call them garbage rooms. So anyway, I've been in many of those, and there is a lot of good intel. So we had a look at that. We looked at the back of house and had a chat with some of the leadership team and set up our first session together. At that first session, we spent a good amount of time together, the entire team. So a lot of this was my first time meeting the wider team, and I really spend a lot of time with my clients understanding what is it that they know, what is it that they care about, what inspires them to come to work every day, where do they notice, on this occasion, plastic, where do they notice single-use plastic in their daily lives? And we really start to have a conversation together. My activations, my workshops, my leadership approach that I bring to the clients that I work with is collaborative. So we did this and we worked together, and it was genuinely about looking at what is happening in the day-to-day and where might there be opportunities. And let's take the lid off that. There's no limitations. What are the opportunities that we could, explore together? It was fantastic. So some really phenomenal ideas came from the team. There was a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of discussion that really invited everyone at every level of the hotel to share their thoughts and their voice. I love this full participation. It gives everyone permission to have an opinion, because we have an opinion, but sometimes we're just keeping it to ourselves. So each of the teams throughout that workshop, they presented a project that they could potentially run. And then we worked out what the priorities were in terms of capacity, capability, availability of solutions. And I worked with them closely for around 1 or 2 months after that initial engagement. I have this video from a webinar that we did back in 2022, I think. And it really just sums it up beautifully. And so I encourage you to head over to my YouTube channel. It's not super active, but this video of Joni speaking about her response to what happened was still one of the very heartwarming moments of my career, where by inviting the team into the conversation, she was so worried. We had this big list of things after that first engagement where she thought, oh my gosh, this is a to-do list for me. But what she quickly learned after the fact was, no, everyone was doing it. It was a team effort. And so that was really amazing. And so beyond working out how to solve their back of house single-use plastic issues, they also implemented great initiatives for guest amenities that were available on request. They learned some things along the way. Look, it wasn't perfect. They ordered their beautiful, bamboo amenities. And when they arrived, there were some of them, I believe, again, it's been a while, so if I mess up some of the specifics, it may have been from another client, but I believe some of them were at least were wrapped in single-use plastic. So it was like, okay, so we need to learn how do we communicate with suppliers to get them to help us to achieve our mission. They established a composting system. So because their nature is such an important part of this hotel, and even for hotels where nature isn't, the primary value up front and center, often there are plants in rooms. And so they need to rotate those plants out of the rooms, into the sunlight, into the rain, and all of that, good, natural, reviving, nutrient-rich environment, not in a closed hotel room. So they have a rotation of plants. And what they realized is that for the organic waste from the kitchen, making the compost actually really benefited something that they were already doing. So they set that up. These are just two of the really, needle moving examples that they did. But within, I reckon it was about 6 weeks when I went back for a check-in with them, they were just so proud of themselves. They had implemented nearly everything on the list. And the reason they were able to do that is because they did it together. What I saw is a team who were excited, they're proud of themselves, so proud of themselves. Like, I am grinning, I am beaming to myself right here, right now, remembering it. And we've maintained a relationship since then. And a couple of years ago, when I was back visiting Cambodia, because I no longer live there full time, I was back visiting, and Joni reached out and she said, look, the team have been working on a waste to art project during the month of July. Would you please do us the honor of coming and judging and helping be part of a judging process for their presenting of their artworks? And I thought this was beautiful. I've seen a lot of art, waste to art type projects, but some of the best, some of the most impressive, some of the most phenomenal ones I've seen have been in Cambodia. And this literally blew me away. So many levels of that. So I went along. I met the teams. There've been a few staff changes since I was last there. I reconnected with those who had met early on, and then we were there, and there was a little metric to rate each project on, and they had been given the brief. They were only allowed to use waste, and ideally from the hotel. There was one project who had used their next door, so owned by the same company. There's a cafe next door that aren't as plastic free as the hotel, and they used some of their straws, and they made this incredible traditional Cambodian wooden house out of used plastic straws that happened to be brown. It was perfect. But everything else was pretty much from within the hotel. The artworks were stunning, stunningly beautiful. One I recall was a beachside scene, and they had used oyster shells from the kitchen. Yeah, they had somehow made water. They'd made the ocean by melting plastic. And maybe not the safest, but the result was phenomenal. And there was another project that was a clock, and it was made from pieces of waste, an old wheel, and some other things that had come through the garbage room. And one of the other things that was really endearing, one of the many things that stood out to me was when Joni shared with me how the teams had been so excited. They were so enthusiastic. They worked together. They got ideas. They ran around trying to find the solutions, the pieces to create their vision for their artworks. So that was a huge part of it. This was all done on their own personal time too, and they were happy. They were happy to do it. So this exciting, cohesive teamwork aspect really shone through. And then another thing that really shone through is that with each presentation of the art piece, they talked about the collaborative process. They talked about the technical process And they also talked about the environmental awareness, the knowledge, the resourcing, why they'd chosen the materials they'd chosen, where they'd gotten them from, and why it was important to protect the environment. And it was just phenomenal because I could see the pieces of the training that we've done with them over the years, and I'm so fortunate. I have a couple of freelancers that I use in Cambodia who regularly run these workshops in the local language. And so consistently, our Siem Reap representative has been in and done training with the team to keep it fresh, to keep it top of mind, and to give them an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I could see this connection. I could see the pieces of the training in their presentations and how they had matched that knowledge. They'd integrated that knowledge into their art projects and into the process. And it was just so inspiring and heartwarming and beautiful. And the pride and the joy and the fun that came along with it, this is what I'm talking about. I see a lot here in Australia that sustainability feels hard and heavy and obligatory, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be inspiring and integrated and transformative. And I think another one of the big takeaways from that is they designed this. They were given a brief, but they created the outcome. And that's where integrated sustainability comes in there. The GM, Joni, she set the scene, but she didn't try and control all the details. She let them run with it, which is something that she does magnificently and what real leadership is about. She let them run with it, and then the results were beyond delightful, beyond delightful. The loyalty of her team, this that I can go there now, nearly 10 years later, and still know many of the staff that are working there. This is beautiful. This is beyond environmental sustainability. This is what a truly sustainable, resilient business is about. Sustainability goes beyond just environmental, and this probably isn't something I've explored as in depth yet. I'm sure I will. It's also the human element, the cultural element, the economic element. Sustainable businesses are more economically resilient because people are at the center of it. Culture is at the center of it. It's not just about sorting waste. It's not just about weighing waste. It's about finding creative solutions and opportunities together as a team. Yeah. And I also know that when I have met new staff there and I maybe say hi to someone at the front desk that I haven't met before, the face lights up. They're like, oh yeah, this is what we do. Like, this is da da da. Let me show you this. Let me tell you about this. And it's just magnificent. I think where I've seen this, like this true integration, that piece that I just mentioned is one of the big ones. It's not performative, it's genuine. There's genuine joy, pride, delight. This doesn't take more time. It doesn't necessarily take more money, but it does take intention. It doesn't happen by accident. What I've seen over and over again is that when we create a platform, we create a foundation and allow others to bring their interpretation, their enthusiasm to it. Their invitation is for them to have agency, to have a say, to have a voice. And that pride then comes through because they've been part of building it together. And I think that all of that is just so present in this example. And so, yes, they achieved their plastic-free hotel goal. They achieved food waste reduction and organic composting. They achieved beautiful team engagement campaigns like the Waste to Art project. And at the end of the day, none of this is really about plastic. It's really about culture. It's about collaboration, curiosity, togetherness, shared values. And it's interesting because just yesterday I was chatting to someone in a very different industry, and they raised up a problem to me, and I kind of didn't even kind of. And my response was really sharing some of these very same tools. I'm like, you can call it sustainability. You can call it, the focus might be sustainability. The focus might be diversity and inclusion. The conversation might be new technology, but the foundation is the same. Humans are at the center of this. And when we open up the conversation and bring people to the table, this is where things start to shift. If you're wondering if you've achieved integration in your property or your organization, what might you be able to look for? What might you be able to look for? And I believe it would be having those conversations, understanding people's level of understanding. Not everyone's going to be like gung-ho enthusiastic about this, but if they're not given a chance to, then it's really hard. So what is people's response when you ask about sustainability or a particular initiative? Is it vague or is it excited? Is it dismissive or is it curious? That energy speaks volumes. Is there pride or is there a little bit of shame or awkwardness? I recall a few years ago when I was working for a council sustainability program here in Sydney, and part of engaging the local businesses, I decided to ask around. There was a reusable cup system in place at the time. There are new versions of that now, but this particular one at the time, and I went into several cafes and asked, hey, I see that you have, it was called green caffeine. I see you have this green caffeine reusable cup. And a lot of the time I was told, oh yeah, but not many people use it. And I thought, wow, yeah, of course they don't, if that's how you're selling it to them. Like, they didn't know I was from council. I was just going in, as a normal customer to get coffee. That's a team that's been given a system but not really engaged with about that, versus one that puts that up front and says, hey, did you bring a reusable cup today or would you like to borrow one of ours? And I also experienced that. There was a cafe for a long time and they refused to have any single-use cups. So it was off the bat, have you brought your own cup or are you using one of ours today? Love that so much. It's part of the conversation, part of how they do things there. When I talk about our inner worlds and our outer worlds, when the outside starts to look like the inside, where the actions match the policy or match the sustainability certificate, I think this example is just living, breathing proof that I don't even really need to look at their policy because actions speak louder than words. And, there's been moments where I still love to connect with them, but I know they've got this. I feel like they are really just taking it and running with it. And this is what I always hope for the kind of clients that I work with, that at some point my help or my team's help becomes obsolete. It's no longer needed. It's a relationship that we enjoy and that we can still come back and learn from each other and connect on different things. But I feel so proud. I feel so proud when they have really integrated the lesson and go forth and keep making it better. And it's happened more than once. So before I finish off today, there are two groups of people who might be listening to this that I think about a lot. The first is for people working in sustainability, working in ESG, and especially those where the role kind of landed in your lap, maybe, rather than in your heart. If sustainability found you through obligation rather than a genuine passion, I want you to know that your honesty about this matters more than you might think. Not everyone is meant to be the sustainability lead, and it's totally okay. But what matters is that someone who feels energized by sustainability rather than depleted by it. This is important. So if you're holding this role and it doesn't feel like it's yours to hold, one of the most useful things you can do is either find the part of it that does light you up, or perhaps be honest enough to pass the torch to someone who's been waiting for it. Both are acts of integrity, And integrity, as we've been talking about throughout this series, is where sustainability actually lives. Because sustainability contains multitudes. I just spoke about this, about how it is not just about the environment. It's not just about the policies. It's not just about the reporting. And someone who finds reporting, mind-numbing, challenging, heavy, they might find something like running a plastic-free July activation with the team really invigorating and inspiring, right? I would probably put myself in that bucket. Reporting, not my favorite. Plastic-free July activation, super my favorite, which is why I'm doing it again this year. Someone who doesn't connect with policy might light up at the moment they're in the kitchen with the chef talking about food waste. Someone overwhelmed by the big picture might find joy in the small operational details, the compost bin, the default settings, the one conversation that shifts something. So if you haven't found your corner of this work, keep looking for it, because you might find it. And if you have looked and it's genuinely not there, if this role is costing you more than it's giving you, then freeing it up for someone who will flourish in it is one of the most sustainable things you can do for yourself. Find what you are passionate about. Work should not be a slog. We should all be able to do work or find meaning in our work. It's also really sustainable for your team and for the work itself, because all of us play a role in sustainability and in the culture of the places where we're working. And so for the GMs or operators listening who feel the weight of sustainability as an obligation more than an opportunity, I hear you. And I see this is so prevalent here in Australia. If you've listened to my previous episode on why compliance won't save the planet, that's where some of this inspiration comes from. You don't have to be the expert. You don't need to love sustainability or have all of the answers. It's such a big topic right now. I've spent 11 years in this space and I'm still learning, evolving, adapting. That's a big responsibility to put on yourself, to think that you have to know it all, like right here, right now. It could also feel really daunting. So you don't need to know every aspect of it. You don't need to have the answers yourself. The amount of times I've spoken with hotels and they've told me, when we've done A, B, C, and D, then we'll be ready for you. No, my job is to help you, not to test you. So what steps can you take? What you can do is to make it safe for the people in your team to be part of the story so they can do their best work. Remove those barriers, remove the pressure, put it on the meeting agenda, ask questions, create the room, create the space. That's your role as a leader. You don't expect yourself to be an engineer. You don't expect yourself to be the accountant. Don't expect yourself to be the sustainability lead either. Use your leadership role. This is what you already know how to do. Leadership is about helping your people to really shine, not about knowing everything. And so if you have been holding everything and doing everything, you might also be robbing someone else of this experience, of the joy to deliver something impactful in their work. So when you can lead well, you'll start to see that results feel less like obligation and a lot more like something that you're all genuinely proud of. Just like the team at Treeline Urban Resort in Cambodia. This podcast is called Two Homes. In a home away from home, in a hotel, in a beautiful country that showed us how teams present art made from waste and had fun doing it. This is the magic. This is where I see that inner inspiration showing up in team cohesion, innovation, creativity, and a whole lot more connection. This is absolutely Two Homes in action. Thank you for being here today. I hope that you've found this example truly inspiring. Look up Treeline. If you're ever visiting Cambodia, definitely pop in. Ask about what they're up to this year. Tell them I said hi. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.